Pronunciation Pro.
Pronunciation Pro.
Hello and welcome to the Pronunciation Pro podcast. My name is Annie Rudin and I am the host of this podcast and the founder of the Pronunciation Pro online training program. So if you haven't checked out pronunciationpro.com, definitely go check that out. I also invite you to join our mailing list because I do send out weekly newsletters with lessons and then occasionally we'll have special discounts and offers that we provide our students and our mailing list there at Pronunciation Pro. So I would love for you to come join us. It'd be really fun to stay in touch and see how I can help you learn how to speak American English clearly and with greater confidence. That's our two focus at Pronunciation Pro: clarity and confidence. I just know in the 15 years that I've been working with thousands of other non-native English speakers that the confidence piece is probably the most important in this whole recipe of improving your spoken English. When you build that confidence, it really makes a big difference. Part of building confidence, though, is building your communication skills and really learning how to use this instrument that is your voice. So today I'm really excited about this topic of showing you the 6 most common English intonation mistakes and how you can fix them relatively quickly. So intonation, when I'm talking about intonation, I am talking about the music of language, the rhythm of American English. So in my program, we really talk about the sounds of English, and we talk about the rhythm of English. And so intonation is a good way of describing the rhythm. I think a lot of people think of the rhythm as intonation. So like, how do I use my intonation to communicate what I'm really needing to communicate? And there's so much meaning that comes through in our intonation. So it's very, very important to understand intonation when it comes to American English. So today I'm going to walk through 6 of the most common English intonation mistakes and then help you understand kind of the rules behind it and then how to correct those. Okay, so very practical lesson. And I'm really excited to share with you these really important rules of American English. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about intonation first. So when you are listening to someone speak in a different language, you might not understand that language. You might not understand the vocabulary or the words that they're saying, but you may be able to pick up on which language it is because you have heard that rhythm. And think of it in terms of music. We know, you know what jazz sounds like versus classical versus pop or R&B or folk music. Okay, so there's different styles of music, and you can tell by the rhythm that it uses. And so languages are the same. There are different rhythms in language, and you can get really good at being able to understand or hear the different rhythms of languages. So for example, when I think of when I hear kind of the Indian languages, the rhythm that I hear is okay. There's this popping rhythm to it and kind of that jumps up and down. Okay. French is more like da 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 da. So there's like this rhythm of an upwards intonation at the end of their sentences. So that intonation rises quite a bit at the end of sentences. Whereas American English is kind of da 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 da. Okay. So I describe it as kind of up and over the hill. And it's not, there's not breaks in between. It's just smoothly between each sound. Okay. So there's a lot of connection that's happening there, but the intonation is rising and lowering and rising and lowering. And that is how American English is put together. So from afar, you can kind of think of that rhythm as da 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 da. Okay. And so with that in mind, there are certain rules or things that are happening like word stress, sentence stress, linking, chunking, pausing, rate of speech. There's these rules that make up the rhythm of American English or that intonation pattern. So today I'm going to go through six different pieces of this and show you how, when it's done incorrectly, how it can really affect how clearly you're understood. But then when it's done well and correctly, and you understand the rules and you really know how to use it, it can create so much more clarity and just that overall rhythm that's beautiful and easy to understand in American English. Okay. All right. So let's talk. And as I go through these, I'm saving the best for last. Okay. So number 6, I really want you to stick around for number 6 because that is going to probably be the most important one that you hear today. It's going to kind of cap it off, or kind of the grand finale. Okay. All right. So number 1, the most common English intonation mistakes. So number 1, first one we're going to talk about is being monotone. So monotone means the same tone. So intonation, we're talking about, and think of it as musical notes. Okay, so think of your voice as an instrument, such as a piano. Okay, if I'm only playing 2 notes on a piano, it's going to get quite boring. All right. If I'm only, I have a range of maybe 4 or 5 notes, it's going to be quite boring to listen to. Whereas if I use the whole range of the piano, it's going to be so much more interesting, so much more dynamic. Okay. Because I'm using this variety of notes in a variety of ways. Okay. Think of your voice in the same way. Your voice has this huge range, and are you really using that full range, or are you sticking into just like a few notes of your voice as an instrument? When we can really practice that range and practice using that range, it really becomes quite powerful. So having no intonation is going to be very problematic because in American English, if you notice, the most dynamic speakers, the most interesting speakers, the easiest speakers to understand are going to use a range of high notes and low notes. And they're going to play around with that, with those notes as they're using this instrument that is their voice. Okay. So you have to really think of it. Okay. My voice is an instrument. And am I using the full range, or am I keeping it pretty basic? And if you're keeping it pretty basic, that's okay. That's okay. But if you're really wanting to expand it and really get that clarity, especially in American English, you have to start expanding that range of notes that you're using and play around with it. It's going to feel really awkward. So a lot of my students say that it feels like acting. It feels like they're acting, or they're playing a role. And what I say is, if you feel like you're acting, then you're doing it right, because you're getting out of your normal use of your instrument, and it's going to be uncomfortable at first until it feels normal and natural and comfortable. Okay. So that's what we have to do, is we have to expand those notes that we're using, expand that intonation to include higher and lower, range of notes. So monotone, that's going to be problematic for you. If you're really wanting to give presentations or do public speaking, or, we have quite a few students who have done podcasts or YouTube videos, or just even in a work meeting or with friends and things. The more range that you can use, the better, the more clarity. Because American English, for the most part, you're going to still find a lot of people who use, a very shallow use of their musical instrument. But for the most part, there is a lot more dynamic in American English. So we want to use more of that range. So it's going to be uncomfortable, but I need you to play around with that. And even if it's reading out loud and just playing with that tone is really helpful. So my kids, when I read to them at night, the children's books that we read at night, I really like the books Elephant and Piggy, I think it's what it's called. And I'll have to do that on a podcast at one point. Is just read those books with the intonation, but there's so much that can be used in intonation, and so I use this whole range. So when I'm reading those books to my kids, so you could practice, when if you're reading kids books at night, play around with the range in that, or use ChatGPT to ask for a dialogue, a common dialogue between American English speakers and who have just met, for the first time, or whatever scenario you want to practice, and play with that dialogue and play with, using different range in your speaking. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, the second most common, well, I don't really have these in order. I just kind of listed 6 of the most common, but the number 6 is probably the most common. But number 2 on my list here is stressing the wrong syllable. So every word in American English has a syllable that is as one or more syllables that are stressed more than the others. Okay, so stress pattern becomes really, really important as in the sense of pronunciation and that rhythm. Okay, so there's a kind of a common joke where the phrase emphasis on the wrong syllable and saying it as emphasis on the wrong syllable. Okay, emphasis on the wrong syllable. You're going to have a lot of confusion if there is emphasis on the wrong syllable, okay, or emphasis on the wrong syllable. Okay, so what I was doing there is I was emphasizing the wrong syllable. In emphasis should be emphasis. So emphasis, I'm stressing the second syllable instead of the first syllable. So it should be first syllable stress, emphasis. Okay. Syllable, I'm pronouncing it as the second syllable instead of the first syllable, which in American English, that's how it's pronounced. And so in every word in American English, there is a right and a wrong way to emphasize words. So this very is like a cut and dry, like this is the right syllable, this is the wrong syllable. So understanding word stress and understanding the rules of word stress are very important. So today I'm going to give you an example that covers quite a few words in American English. And so the word is, if it's a 2-syllable word, okay, so here's the rule, I guess. If it's a 2-syllable word and it's a noun, it's usually first syllable stress, okay? If it is a verb, it's usually second syllable stress. Okay, let me repeat that. For 2-syllable words in American English, it's usually first syllable stress if it's a noun and second syllable stress if it's a verb. So let me give you an example or a few examples. Okay, the word perfect. Okay, perfect. Now, noun or adjective, I guess this is more like an adjective, but noun or adjective versus a verb. Okay, so perfect is going to be first syllable stress. Okay, perfect is second syllable stress. So these are heteronym words that I'm using. So the name of this is heteronym words, which is when a word is spelled the same but pronounced differently. Okay, so the word perfect and perfect are spelled exactly the same. The difference is perfect is first syllable stress, perfect is second syllable stress. So noun or adjective, first syllable stress, and verb, second syllable stress. So let's get another example in here. Record and record. Okay, record, noun, first syllable stress. record verb, second syllable stress. Spelled the same, pronounced differently because of that stress shift that happens. Okay, another example, object, object. Okay, object, a noun, first syllable stress. Object, second syllable stress, verb. Okay, super interesting. And we, in the Pronunciation Pro program, we really map out all of these words, and we go through kind of the rules of word stress. The main thing, however, it's good to understand the rules so that there's more awareness and you can kind of understand, oh, there are patterns. It's not just completely random in American English. There are patterns that help you figure out which words are stressed. But the most important thing that we do in my training is we're going to tune your ear to this concept of word stress. We're going to expose you to that idea, the rules, really practice with playing around with word stress and shifting word stress and things like that. And then it tunes your ear so that when you're hearing American English, you're hearing how people are stressing words so that you can match that. So very similar to the way kids grow up learning a language is they're matching the rhythm or the stress patterns that they're hearing. And it's later down the road that they're actually learning how to spell things and things, and in that way. So our listening skills have to really, really be developed to hear these parts of American English that's like, oh, that's the rhythm. That's more of the rhythm of American English. Okay. So second common mistake for intonation is stressing the wrong syllable. Okay. Number 3 is you stress the wrong word in sentences. Okay, this comes into the rules of sentence stress is what we categorize it as. So sentence stress, word stress is which syllable is being stressed in a word. Sentence stress is which word is being stressed in a sentence. So for example, the sentence, are you coming tonight? Okay, if I were to stress each individual word of that, a different stress on a different word is going to give a different meaning. So, are you coming tonight? Are you coming tonight? So, what I'm looking for in this, and the meaning behind this, because I stressed are you coming tonight? Is, hey, I need an answer. Are you coming or are you not? Okay. Now let me shift it to the next one. Are you coming tonight? Are you coming tonight? I emphasized you, which implies, hey, is it you that's coming tonight or someone else? Okay. Are you coming tonight? Okay. Are you coming tonight? If I stress that coming versus like, are you going? Are you staying? Like I'm trying to get some clarity on, are you coming or are you not? Okay. And then tonight. So that last word, are you coming tonight? Okay, if I'm going to stress tonight, it gives the impression, are you coming tonight or tomorrow night or next week? The time piece is in question here because I emphasized tonight. Okay, so this is how sentence stress works. So there's not really like a right or a wrong way. I guess I should say that differently. There definitely is a right or wrong way in terms of what you're meaning. But as far as like word stress, there's a very specific syllable that needs to be stressed. But sentence stress can change depending on what meaning you have. And so I can say that one sentence in a variety of ways, but it just depends on what my intent is. What am I meaning through that sentence? So getting understanding of sentence stress, and that like, oh, if they stressed or emphasized, and stressed means like your tone goes higher, louder, you're stronger in that specific word, then it's drawing attention to that word for a reason. Okay, there's meaning in that. So we really have to tune our ears to which, what is the stress pattern or the intonation pattern that they're using, and what is it telling me? I have a situation that happened a few weeks ago is I bought a doormat. So like just a little thing to put in front of my front door in my house. And on it, it just says, oh, comma, hello. Okay. O-H, comma, hello. And so my kids saw that, and we started kind of playing around with intonation as far as like reading that sentence. And we started being like, oh, hello, or oh, hello, or oh, hello. We just kind of were playing around with like, how could we say that one phrase in different ways, depending on how we wanted to communicate with visitors that are coming into our house. Oh, hello. Like, I can't believe you're here. Oh, hello. Or, oh, hello. Like very abrupt. So we are playing with this instrument that is our voice to change the intonation to communicate something different. So if we want it to be really friendly, it's like, oh, hello. Oh, hello, come on in, right? Or, oh, hello. Like, I'm not so sure I want you here. Okay, so that intonation, that playing with that intonation, really gives a lot of different meaning. And so stressing that, a common mistake that I hear from my students is just we're not picking up on those shifts in intonation, so it affects how you're understanding other people, and it affects how other people are understanding you if you're not using it correctly. So really getting aware of that shifting stress and playing around with it, of just like, okay, as I'm listening to other people, I need to tune my ear to like, what words are they stressing and emphasizing, and what meaning does that bring? So just like my example, are you coming tonight? Are you coming tonight? Okay, I'm emphasizing tonight, and so that's the word in question. That's the important word. So we stress names, numbers, negatives like no, don't, won't, can't, wouldn't. So names are usually stressed, numbers are really stressed, negatives are really stressed. So I call those the three N's: names, numbers, negatives, that we stress in words, because that's usually gives more meaning to what you're saying. And then again, it's just like, okay, which words are stressed? Those are the important ones. Okay, so then going on to number 4. Okay, number 4 on my list of common English intonation mistakes. Number 4 is rising at the end of statements. Okay, in American English, we have rules as far as when our voice goes up and when it goes down. One of those rules is that when your intonation goes up at the end of sentence, it's because you're asking a yes or no question, or it's a kind of like a shock. You're like shocked or can't believe something. Like, you got married? Okay, you got married? Okay, or you got married, as a yes or no statement. All right. So what I hear sometimes, and this is a lot in our French speakers, where the intonation tends to rise at the end. So there's two different meanings. It's either a yes or no question when we rise at the end in American English, or it's we're giving a list of things and we're not done yet. Or we're talking and we haven't ended our sentence yet, and it just kind of keeps going, and we keep, adding more onto it, and our tone keeps coming up because we're not done yet. That is that rising intonation pattern. Whereas like, hey, I'm going to the store and I need eggs and milk and butter and cheese. Okay. The downward intonation tells me that we're done with that list, or we're done with that. That's like speaking in that way. So what I hear is that rising intonation used more than it should be. So it really should only be for yes or no questions. If it's like shock, you're shocked and you're kind of have a statement of shock, or you're doing a list, kind of you're listing things, or you're not quite done with your sentence. And it's just overused quite a bit in some of my students. So that rising intonation, where it should be, instead of the meeting starts at 10 a.m., that would be leave your listener like, that's a question, yes or no. Okay. The meeting starts at 10 a.m. versus the meeting starts at 10 a.m. The meeting starts at 10 a.m. That's a statement. That's just telling information. Okay. I'm coming to the meeting today. You are so kind. Okay. Do you feel how that intonation drops there at the end? That's what we want as far as statements, and most of American English is going to end in that downward intonation. Okay. So even just as you're listening to me, pay attention to, that the end of those sentences, the end of the words are coming down. And we want to have that because it pulls it, it anchors it, and we're just pulling down on that intonation there at the end. All right. Okay. Number 5, common English intonation mistakes is there's no linking or chunking. Okay. So let me explain what linking and chunking is. I'm actually first going to start with chunking. So in American English, we, as I'm teaching a rhythm or intonation, a lot of times I'll say, okay, let's chunk the sentence out. So for example, if I had a sentence that said, we are leaving today at noon, are you coming? Okay. We are leaving today at noon. Okay. That's one chunk. It's one thought, kind of one thought group. We are leaving today at noon. Are you coming? Are you coming? Or are you coming? Okay. And it could have that intonation, that upwards intonation, because it's kind of like a yes or no question. Are you coming? Are you coming is a little bit more demanding in the intonation, versus are you coming is a little bit more just like, oh, lighthearted. Okay. So just as an awareness of intonation in that situation. We are leaving today at noon. Think of it as like just that umbrella. We're going to keep that all together. We are versus we are leaving today at noon. So if I were to break it apart like that, it would sound really choppy. It wouldn't sound very fluid. So we want to, and this is where linking comes in, we want to link or connect those words together so that it's nice and smooth through that. And we're going up and over that hill. Are you leaving today at noon? So do you hear how I started kind of lower and I'm going back up and then I'm coming back down? We are leaving today at noon. Okay. Are you coming? So are you coming would be another chunk. So when you're reading out loud, or when I'm working with my students, oftentimes we'll take a passage and we'll identify the chunks, and then we'll work on linking within that chunk. As this is especially true for a lot of the Asian languages are a little bit more choppy than American English, kind of broken up a little bit more than American English. And so we have to practice that linking and getting those chunks to have a smooth movement in between. Okay. So that is, one of those areas that I really have to work on with my students is, chunking, identify the chunk or the thought group that you want to say, and linking that chunk all together, pause, link the next chunk, pause, and the next chunk. All right. All right. Now number 6. Okay. We're coming down to our finale, our grand finale. And I say this as it's like, it is the most important thing, but it is so simple and so basic that you're probably going to laugh at it and just be like, oh, that's not the first time I've heard that. But it is the most common intonation mistake, is speaking too fast. Okay. So often my students think that in order to sound fluent in American English, they have to speak quickly. In order to sound fluent in American English, they think they have to speak quickly. Now, just as an example, in this podcast, I haven't been speaking incredibly fast. There's a lot of linking and chunking. There's pausing. There's emphasis. And there's that kind of intonation shift. I'm trying to use a whole range of intonation, which makes it way easier for you to understand what I'm saying. Okay, so speaking fast does not mean you're speaking fluently. Fluency has to do with slowing down, using emphasis on the right syllable of words and the right word in a sentence, and linking words together as it's most appropriate. Okay, so that bringing together these word stress, sentence stress, chunking, linking, and pace. Bringing it into a pace that's easy for your listener to follow along, and you're using all these other pieces. Now, it's interesting with my students is when they slow down, their mouth has time to get into position for the correct sounds of American English, but also it gives them time to stress and emphasize key words, and it gives their mouth time to move from one word to the next because they're not trying to speed through it so fast. So this pace, slowing down and getting that pace in the right position really helps clear up a lot of other things, or helps you use the other rules of rhythm so much more effectively. And I love to hear it when I simply just ask my students to slow down. It's amazing what other skills they bring into play because they have some more awareness. They have more time to be able to do that. Okay, so fascinating. So if you can do just one of these things today, it's slow it down. Slow it down and pay attention to where your mouth is going and what it's doing, and give it time. Just give it time. It's really fascinating to see what happens. Now, with this idea of slowing down, I like to give the visualization of, say you're going on a walk with a friend and you are walking together. Ideally, you want to walk at the same pace. Okay, that is the most comfortable way to go on a walk with someone and to walk next to each other so that you can talk, you can enjoy each other. So walking at the same pace really makes a big difference. Now, if you were sitting there, if you were going on a walk with a friend and they kept speeding up and then slowing down and speeding up and slowing down, you'd be like, okay, I'm having a hard time kind of keeping up with you. Or they just walked really fast. And so then you had to walk really fast to keep up with them. And it was just, you're out of breath. You're not able to really kind of keep up with what they're saying because, their pace is too fast. Obviously the opposite can be true too. If you're walking too slow, it kind of gets a little bit, boring or hard. So we're trying to find that pace with our listeners where we can walk with them and it's easy for them to follow along with us, and that it creates just an easy experience for the both of you. So think of that in, with your speaking. It's like, okay, we don't want to walk so fast that our listener, we don't want to speak so fast so your listener is just really having a hard time keeping up. Especially if there are some pronunciation mistakes in there, they're going to have to correct that in their head. And if you're going too fast, it just gets frustrating for them to make those corrections and try and still keep up with where you're going next. I've also had students where it's like they speed up and they slow down, and then they speed up and they slow down, and they speed up, and so it's inconsistent. Their pace is inconsistent, and it's really hard for their listeners to keep up with it or know where they're going to go next. So really think of that in your conversations is, how is my pace, and is my listener able to easily keep with me and stay with me, just as a friend would, want to stay with you on a walk together? Is your pace a way, such that your listener can just easily follow along, and that it won't be a huge stress or strain for them to keep up with you? So again, fluency is not speaking fast. Fluency is speaking with clarity. It's speaking with that linking and connecting, but you can do that at a slower pace. All right. I hope this was very helpful for you. Again, there is so much more I can teach you that I really want to teach you. So go and join my mailing list at pronunciationpro.com, or in the show notes of this podcast or this YouTube video. And go join my mailing list. I will send you some weekly lessons and special offers. If you're ready to start working with us at Pronunciation Pro, we would love to have you. We have a combination of group lessons, and we have a combination of and options for private one-on-one training packages. So go take a look at pronunciationpro.com and in the show notes, and let's get connected. I would love to be able to teach you more and work with you more so that you can speak English clearly and with incredible confidence. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Pronunciation Pro.
Pronunciation Pro.